So our presentation this evening is just about making your voice heard, how to show up at events and how to make sure that your lawmakers are being accountable to you. So we've already kind of gone through the introductions. So go ahead in the chat, put your name, organization if you're with one, and the county where you live. You might notice that there are some familiar faces or people that you've maybe seen or heard of on social media, and they're in this, they're here today. So go ahead and say hello and introduce yourself to others. Our goals with Progress Iowa are to create a community where Iowans can come together. We want to connect progressive voices from across the state, and we want to make sure that you all have the tools that you need to be successful in reaching out and speaking to your lawmakers. And we want to provide these tools to help empower you so that you feel confident and comfortable when you go out, you talk to lawmakers, whether it's through email or phone calls, through bird dogging like we're going to talk about today, or through office visits. So we just really want to give you the tools that you need to feel confident and comfortable and successful, and just make sure that you feel good about what you're doing and the activism that you partake in. So the title of our presentation is just called Iowans Speaking Out. And now more than ever, it is important for you to contact your elected officials, whether that's through phone calls, whether that's through emails or attending town halls and forums. It's really important, especially in an election year like this one, that we're showing up and we're asking those tough questions, whether it's about Medicare or Social Security or student loan debt. We want to make sure that we're getting our electeds on record about their voting stance and how they plan to best represent Iowans, whether it's at the state house or maybe it's your county supervisors, or maybe it's in Congress. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to hold our lawmakers accountable. And you can go to the next slide, Ivy. So whether it is in your phone calls or your emails or showing up in person, just remember to be polite, to be persistent, and to be personal. A personal story goes a long way when you are contacting lawmakers. And we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So what I'm going to focus on tonight is showing up at those forums and what it looks like when you attend those forums. So the first thing that I would encourage you to do is I would encourage you to show up early. Know where the entrances are and the exits are. And the reason for that is because sometimes lawmakers may not answer your questions when you're seated or when you're in an audience setting. So what you can do then is, as they are maybe trying to leave the building or as others are coming into the building, you can try to catch them and ask your question when they're leaving or when they're coming in. If you know of someone who's been to a town hall before, you can ask them what the rules are. Sometimes lawmakers will draw, like you'll go in and they'll give you a ticket, and they'll draw like names out of a hat. Sometimes they'll have you fill out a postcard and you'll put your name and your address on it so they can verify that you're a constituent. They'll pull out your name. They'll call on you that way. Sometimes it's kind of, the Hunger Games, you raise your hand and it's whoever they call on first or whoever they happen to see. So just make sure you know kind of what to expect with what that town hall might be like. And so, for example, if you do have a lawmaker who calls names out of a hat or who, calls your name from a postcard, this is why it's important to maybe know where those entrances and exits are, because if your name didn't get called and you have a question you really want to ask, you want to try to catch that lawmaker as they're leaving the building or, maybe as they're heading out into the parking lot or something like that. Craft your message. Make sure that when you're asking your question, you have a specific question. Try to keep it to one question, and don't just give them like a yes or a no. Make them have to, explain and justify their answer. Personal examples are always the best. If you can, try to attend with a group of people. 2 is best, like if you have a partner that you like to be involved in activities with, someone who's interested in the same types of activism as you, ask them to go with you. And the reason for that is because we want to try to get as much of this on record as we can. Photographs are great. Videos are golden, right? Because then you have that lawmaker speaking and you have them, you can see them saying what they're saying and interacting with you. If you can get a couple of people, one to take pictures, one to take video, that's even better. Sometimes groups like Indivisible will have a group of folks go together. They have people who are designated to record. Moms Demand Action, I know they just did some questions with Chuck Grassley in Columbus Junction. So if there's a group of people that are going, you can try to talk to them as well and introduce yourself. Like if you see them wearing shirts or something and just say, hey, I'm going to ask this question. Could you record me if you happen to go by yourself? And then persistence, just be persistent, raise your hand, and then sit in a space where you can be called on, whether it's at the end of a row or someplace that's like easily accessible for a staffer to get to you with a microphone. Sometimes they have the microphone like in the middle of like a auditorium or like where you're seated, so people have to walk up to it. That's really great because then what you can do is make sure to get your follow-up question in and you don't have a staffer taking that microphone away from you. But be persistent, raise your hand, be in a space or try to be in a seat where you can easily be called on and where you're within that speaker's line of sight, or like the staffer or the lawmaker, you're in their line of sight so that they can see you. Next slide, Ivy. What our legislators say about winning the forum. They say, make sure you know the counter arguments to your question. So make sure you know how to back that up or how to defend it. One of the things I've also heard from lawmakers is sometimes people will go into a forum or a town hall and they'll ask a question and they use a specific bill number. And sometimes for lawmakers, this can get confusing because when that bill moves from the House to the Senate, it changes, the bill number changes, or it changes as it goes through committee. So maybe they had seen an early version of that bill and what you're referencing is an updated version of it, and they're not familiar with what that is. So make sure to give it some context. So if you're talking about it, talk like the school voucher bill instead of giving a number for it. That way they know exactly what the bill is that you're talking about. If you have information that you can share with them, to hand to them or to hand to a staffer with your contact information, specific details about that question, have that information to give to them and why you support what you support or why you're asking them to vote a certain way, so they can look over that information after they leave the town hall. One of the things that you can do too is you can request your own forum. So if you're with a group of people, folks who have the same sort of interests as you, request a forum from your lawmaker. And if they refuse to meet with you, that's a really great thing to post on social media to draw attention. We had a situation here a month or so ago where Governor Reynolds and Representative Ashley Hinson met behind closed doors with a private group of parents. I would be curious to know if other Iowans have reached out to Kim Reynolds and if they were able to get a private meeting with her. So request a forum on the issue on your own. And if your lawmaker refuses to talk to you or refuses to show up, contact the press, let other people know about this. Make sure people know that they're refusing to meet with you. And then the last suggestion from lawmakers is arrive early so you know the venue. And that's very similar to what we just talked about before. And you can go to the next slide, Ivy. A really quick way to craft a question is to introduce yourself. Hello, my name is, and then where you're from. It's always important for the lawmaker to know that you are a constituent of theirs. If they know that you're a constituent, they are more likely to give you their time, and they're more likely to address your question because they know that you are in fact someone who will vote for them, someone who has some sway or someone who has some pull, because you are in their voting district. If you can, just kind of explain what the issue is that brings you there. What is it that you support, or what is it that you want them to oppose? If you have a personal story you can attach to it, that always makes it so much more impactful. Always thank your lawmaker. They may not answer the question the way that you want them to, but make sure to thank them for answering the question. And then the question, I guess the answer is, did they answer your question? Or did they avoid it? Did they answer another question? Did they go off topic and go someplace else? Don't be afraid if a lawmaker doesn't answer your question, to not give up that microphone and just say, you didn't answer my question. This is what I asked you. And make sure that I don't want to say don't let them off the hook, but make sure that they are answering your question. Don't let them spin, or don't let them avoid it or derail and go off on another topic or talk about something else. Bring it back to your question and make sure that they answer that before they go on to somebody else. So make sure they answer your question. And next slide. The key to these forums, the key to these town halls is making sure that that information leaves the venue that you're at. If you can live stream, that's wonderful. Make sure that you're sharing this information with an audience that isn't able to attend. Use hashtags. So for example, if like currently Ashley Hinson's district is IAO1, currently Marionette Miller Meeks's district is IAO2. So if you happen to go to an Ashley Hinson town hall, use that hashtag, tag her in it. Make sure that they know that, folks who are following that hashtag, make sure that they know that you are at this forum, you asked this question, or you have this picture, or you have this video. Tag the lawmakers, know their Twitter handles. Okay, Twitter and Instagram are really easy to tag lawmakers. Facebook, it's a little bit trickier, but you can certainly post on Facebook and tag them that way as well. And then shoot your video selfie style, so that you're holding your camera so that we're able to see your face. And then also, if you can get the lawmaker answering the question, that's good too. And then Ivy, do you want to go ahead and play the video, please? And I'm not sure that there's sound, Ivy.
Can you hear it now?
Yep.
Okay, I'll start it over. Sorry about that.
What is your plan to keep millions of Americans like myself covered, those of us with pre-existing conditions, people who are on their parents' insurance, and again, people like myself who need life guaranteeing medication? We will lose our insurance, and I probably be dead in 2 months.
Well, there's a lot of, and she's asking only because the courts may declare it unconstitutional, and I don't think the courts are going to declare it unconstitutional.
You've voted 7 times for repeal.
Yes.
Why? What are you going to do with people like myself?
What? First of all, it's not going to get repealed.
I mean, I'm going to ask you, let me restate my question. I want you to answer me personally. As a person whose life depends on insurance,
Sure.
I would be dead in 60 days or less without the Affordable Care Act.
Is it because of pre-existing?
Yes,
Well,
and because of life guaranteed medications.
There's no question about keeping pre-existing conditions.
It's only the Affordable Care Act guarantees that.
If that's your question. And so the Affordable Care Act is the law of the land, and it's not going to be repealed by Congress. Do you think it's going to be repealed tomorrow?
You continue to vote for repeal.
The last time we voted for repeal was when McCain voted the other way, and there's no chance of repealing it now. Besides, if we pass in the Senate, we'll get it through the United States House of Representatives. So what are you worried about?
You're threatening my life.
I asked asked Senator Grassley yesterday why he voted 7 times to repeal the Affordable Care Act and why he wouldn't come up with a proposal that would cover with insurance people like myself with pre-existing conditions. I don't know why that question was so hard to answer. I'm still waiting for the answer from him.
So for those of you who had the pleasure of knowing Robin Stone, she was an amazing activist. And Robin went into that forum. She had a question, which was about the ACA, which was something we wanted to make sure we got an answer for from Chuck Grassley. And Robin was able to take that question and then remember how she said she rephrased it, right? And she was able to use her personal example, her personal story. And a friend of hers was there, and the friend recorded this interaction between Robin and Senator Grassley. And, you know, the video quality isn't, you know, we're not producing any major motion pictures here. The video quality is good. We have the interaction, we have the question, we have Chuck Grassley's response. And then after this particular town hall, this video was shared with us at Progress Iowa, and we were able to put subtitles on it. We were able to get it up on YouTube. Major news networks saw this. We were able to tag them. We were able to promote them. And for those of you who remember, Robin appeared on Lawrence O'Donnell's show, and she was able to talk about this interaction at this town hall with Chuck Grassley. And so when we say things like, you know, any video is good video, it really is true. Any video that you can get of that interaction is great. And if you happen to be at a town hall and maybe you don't even know the person, but they're asking a really good question, go ahead and take out your phone and record that. And so then the next piece of this is making sure that you are sharing this. And Ivy, I just jumped to the 12th slide. So making sure that you are sharing this. So what you can do is you can tag folks who are influencers. You can tag journalists on social media, because you want to get as much mileage out of this interaction as you can. You want to make sure that as many eyes are seeing this as can possibly see this. The other thing that you can do is you can send the video directly to us at Progress Iowa. We're happy to put subtitles on the videos. We're happy to help promote this on social media. So you can share it with one of our staff members. You can tag us on social media. We may reach out to you to get some clarifying details on it. But news media, journalists are always looking for passionate community members to share their stories. And then Ivy, I'm not sure if you can play the other short video here. This one is also Chuck Grassley. We're kind of picking on Senator Grassley a little bit tonight.
For the gun, you are risking their lives and my grandsons. For the gun, people, are you kidding me? We've had a shooting in Des Moines. And here's one more thing. You and Senator Ernst, hearts and prayers, whatever. Why are you not down at those funerals in Texas? You seem to think it's okay to arm the whole country with 400 million guns. More than people in our country. So why are you down there mourning with those parents? The immunity one first.
I don't know about all of you, but it's a sad commentary when we have somebody that can kill all the kids that are killed. You think that the safest place in the world, you send your kids to school, would be the safest place. And we all
Speak up.
We all feel very sad about all that stuff as well. And when it comes to the issue of guns, as a result of
what has happened after several shootings. In this one particularly, Senator Schumer has assigned Senator Murphy, and Senator McConnell has assigned Senator Horner of Texas to see what could be put together. Yesterday, they had a meeting by Zoom, and they had very positive results that they think they've got a framework put together that something can be done to stop this violence through some gun legislation and through some school safety issues. And so to answer your question, I'm going to wait until they report next week before I decide what I'm going to do.
So in watching that video, just a couple of things. So that one was actually done by Iowa Starting Line. And they put that out, Pat put it out, and major news outlets picked it up. And the piece that they pulled from that was basically that Grassley was just waiting to see what the legislation was before he would say yes or no that he was going to vote on it. But given that he had recently been named like an NRA, legislator of the year, this was a really important topic, and this was a really important town hall for people to show up to. So one of the things I think that was particularly important about this specific town hall was it took place in Columbus Junction, which a lot of times lawmakers in smaller communities, counties that tend to be more conservative or counties that tend to be more red, they have a little bit more open town halls. And those are really your best opportunity to maybe ask some of these very targeted and very pointed questions. Robbins took place in a town hall in Independence, and then this one here on guns took place in a town hall in Columbus Junction. And I don't think it showed it in this particular clip, but there were several members of Moms Demand Action there. This was right after the shooting in Uvalde, Texas. And they showed up, and they were there, they were prepared, and they were ready to ask questions. So one of the things you may need to do with bird dogging or with attending these forums is traveling a little bit, because oftentimes in some of our more Democratic leaning counties like Lynn County, for example, or Polk County and Blackhawk County, they do not have open town hall meetings like they do in some of these smaller communities. So you might need to, split gas money with some folks and go on a little road trip and, find a good restaurant to have lunch in one of those small towns and attend one of these forums. I think that's really your best bet to have a opportunity to ask some of these questions. So small towns are much better for getting your questions asked sometimes than some of these bigger counties. Go ahead, next slide. So after you have attended this forum, after you've asked a question, you really need to follow up. At the forum, one of the things you can do, like I mentioned earlier, you can hand them a piece of paper, you can hand the staffer a piece of paper that talks about the issue, that has information, it has your contact information on it. If you have a question that you wrote out, you can give that handwritten or typed out question to the staffer as well. And then your contact information, letting them know that you expect a follow-up email or a phone call. And then, you can say that with your question as well. You can say, I expect a follow-up from you, or I expect an email or a phone call from you. And if they don't do that, call their office, email. They have staffers. Our federal electeds have staffers in most major cities. And then our state lawmakers, you can call them and email them. at the Capitol or using their legislative email addresses. You can also go visit them in Des Moines when they are in session. So just remember that these folks work for you. They work for us. They work for the electeds, and they are supposed to be our voice. They are supposed to represent us, whether it's in your city, your county, the state of Iowa, or in Congress. And Julie, you make a really interesting point. They do get a lot of donations from a lot of big corporations, but at the end of the day, those corporations don't vote, right? We're the voters. And so they do have to be accountable to us, right? Because we are the ones who essentially will vote for them. And when you start talking about issues that are important to people like healthcare, especially with the ACA, we saw how that impacted people coming out to vote in 2020 in that election. So corporations do have a lot of money, but they can't vote. We can, and we can talk to our friends and neighbors, and let them know where our legislators stand on these issues. And that's why these videos are really important and impactful too, because it's a way to kind of prove and show, here's what our legislators are saying, here's where they stand on these issues, and here's how they plan to vote or they plan not to vote. And that's why Chuck Grassley, talking about the ACA was really impactful. And you can go to the next slide, Ivy. So now what do? We have this information. We've talked a little bit about showing up. We've talked a little bit about going to forums. So how do we know where the forums are? How do we know what to do to get there? So the first thing I would recommend that you do is go to your lawmaker's webpage, whether that's a state lawmaker in Des Moines or whether that's your member of Congress. Sign up for their newsletters. Oftentimes they put out a weekly newsletter or a bi-weekly newsletter. And in that newsletter, they will put their town halls, or if they have like traveling office hours or something like that. Be familiar with your lawmaker's website. Know where to go. You can look for their weekly schedules. You can see when and where town hall meetings will take place. And Ivy, if you want to click on the lawmakers' websites, this will take us to Chuck Grassley's website. And we know that Chuck Grassley is famous for his 99 county tour. But if you look where it says right under 99 counties and it says follow Chuck Grassley and it says view his public schedule here. So Chuck Grassley is usually pretty good about putting out his weekly schedule. And on this weekly schedule, it will tell you where he's going to be, when he's going to be there, and who he's meeting with. So for example, that week that he happened to have that forum in Columbus Junction, he had several other town halls and forums in some smaller communities across Iowa. So this is just Chuck Grassley's website, but most of the websites have that information on them. I will tell you that the emails, like the weekly emails, are better. Some lawmakers are not great about updating their websites. Ashley Hinson, typically her website is not up to date with town halls, but she usually posts hers on social media or it's in that weekly newsletter. The other place to check for these town halls and these forums is in your local newspapers, especially if you live in a smaller community, because the lawmakers will put that in the local paper in hopes that people will show up. So check your local newspapers. The lawmakers will often put ads in the paper to let you know when they're going to be there. And then a lot of times too, local press will put that out, so they have access to them as well. So